Hello and welcome to another episode of the Accounting Insiders Podcast. My name is Gary DeHart, and I'm the host of the Accounting Insiders Podcast and the publisher of Insightful Accountant. And I've got a new fancy background here that one of our team in the Philippines put together for us, and so it's
Beautiful.
a lot better than my real background, which is very messy. So my guest today is repeat guest is Diane Gilson. And Diane has basically pivoted her focus from bookkeeping, accounting work to she's all in on AI. And so she's been doing a lot of studying, a lot of hands-on work in AI, and thought, hey, you know what? Let's just share what's going on in the world of AI. So this is part three in a six-part series. So Diane, thanks for being here. Certainly, it's always good to catch up.
Yeah. Happy to be here. And you know what
Yeah.
dawned on me as I was seeing your new sign is that you're Insightful Accountants, which is IA, and we're talking about
Yes,
AI.
that's right.
So,
And we have that transposed many times, like
uh
in our internal stuff. We're like, no, it's the other one. Uh,
exactly.
yeah. And so when we look back, first conversation was probably maybe 6 weeks ago, I
Somewhere in
think.
that range,
Yeah.
maybe eight, somewhere in
Yeah.
that vicinity. Yeah.
And so that covered, and I'm just sharing this to kind of recap, and people can go back and find it on YouTube or whatever your podcast channels are. But first episode was kind of a get started. What can AI actually do? And so we took kind of high level conversation about that. And Diane's specifically in ChatGPT, which is where you are spending your AI time and money, right?
Right.
Is in ChatGPT. And then part two was the art of the prompt, and that was we recorded that one maybe 2 weeks ago, and it was really how do you talk to this tool? What is it that prompt again is the message that we give to the tool to get feedback. And then you gave some examples of that and did some direct demos of that. And so now today's episode, we're looking at the title ChatGPT as a thinking partner, not just a typing tool. And that's I like that name. And actually, I don't think I ever asked you, did ChatGPT put all this together, this outline?
It put the outline of our questions together. Yep.
Okay,
I told it what we were doing and what your background was and what my
yeah,
background was, and we wanted to do a podcast, and it came up with this list of interview questions.
all
So
right.
yeah.
That's pretty good, pretty self-aware of it, right? And
Yeah.
so what we want to try to do and what you're trying to do and encouraging people to do is really shift from the mindset of AI being, okay, well, I can have it make a list or I can ask it to do, make my grocery list or what have you.
Mhm.
But really to leverage the tool for its full potential. And that we've said it before. I mean, until you really get your hands on the keyboard, on the audio, whatever, however it is that you interact with it, you don't really understand what the power of the tool is. The more you use it, the more understanding you have. But when you start talking to people, when people sit in on your sessions, is this how they're using it? Are they using it as a typing tool and just as a, hey, make a list for me?
Well, they kind of run the gamut. There's, people who've never touched it before,
Hmm.
and maybe they've been concerned about it or whatever. And then there are people that, for instance, are using it for financial analysis, or they are using it a lot, particularly in tough situations where they have to come up with good wording to maybe we used to call it firing a client.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or coming up with actually in my sessions, we also bring in books and say, okay, so let's say in this particular book, what are some of the primary learning objectives, and set up a prompt for people to put in about their company, and it will help them apply the book and the principles in the book to their particular company. So uh, that's fun.
Yeah, I actually did that we're going through the process of the scaling up process and some methodology. And I was going to do a short presentation on it and had it do. basically went through the process, and in about 15, maybe 18 minutes, I mean, I went from having absolutely nothing to having the outline and a full skeleton with, I would say, skeleton with muscles that I could have presented. We ended up pivoting a little bit, but it is an amazing tool, and that's was much more collaborative too because it was actually asking me, "Hey, would you like me to do this, or what do you think about that?" But it made me understand, have a much better realization of the power of the tool just from that one interaction. So, um, any examples or tips on how you can get people to really think or use ChatGPT to think through a problem
Mhm.
beyond making, again, beyond making a list?
Well, I think part of it is actually stopping and understanding what ChatGPT has in its, I'm going to call it its brain. It has
Hmm.
everything. And stop and think that it has had access to almost every book, every piece of knowledge that we can feed it. That's what the companies have done over the last several years is just keep feeding it information. So it's a lot smarter than we are unless you figured out how to read 50,000 books. Okay.
Right.
So that's the first thing is to realize that you're dealing with something that has a lot of capacity. And also, the tests that are being done on it right now are saying, it's about PhD level. Okay. So, but hopefully friendlier and nicer than some PhDs.
Right.
So at any rate, I think part of it is just going, oh wow, this tool knows everything, pretty much. Now, you have to check it and make sure
Right.
that what you're getting is correct. But so here's an example. When a lot of things have been happening uh, in the Intuit world, okay,
Yeah.
it made a difference in what we're doing in our company. And I thought, I would like to, and we don't do bookkeeping or taxes or anything like that. It's pretty much structural work to help people get their books set up to be able to do job costing. But our pathway to do that has narrowed significantly. And so I had started getting interested in AI about oh, probably close to 2 years ago now. And so I sat down and I said, "Hey, look, here's what's happening with the environment that I'm working in. Okay, I'm thinking of doing something else. I've been looking at AI as an area that I could incorporate in our company, not give up everything that we were doing, but I do need to have something supplemental to what we were doing." And talk to me about it. And it came back with and actually, I just talked for about 15 minutes. It was after I realized that I could just talk into ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Okay. And then it came back with kind of like what you said, a very um, extensive overview. And it did ask me questions as we went along. I asked about changing our name from InfoPlus Accounting to InfoPlus Consulting. And he said, "Oh, yeah, that's a really good idea." Eventually, we went back and said, "Well, where do we go to do that?" Just because I went, "Yeah, I know this has to be with the state and blah, blah, blah." But um, eventually, we ended up asking it the details of exactly where we would go to get our name changed on and so on. And it gave me feedback on why it thought that was a good idea,
Hmm.
etc. So, I mean, it's a whole kind of a counseling system. If you're saying, I need to make some changes in my business. I've been doing the same thing for 30 years and now I need to um, make changes. So help me think my way through it. And it did.
Yeah. Yeah. My wife's a teacher, and she used it kind of towards the end of this school year of kind of changing up some of the wording, like in her reports that she had to deliver to parents. She's like,
Hmm.
she wrote it out, and she's like, "Ooh, this could be a little softer, right?" And so threw it in there. Hey, can you make this a little bit softer? And it came back. She's like, "Wow, that's amazing. Much
Hmm.
better, much softer." And then my brother, thinking of the what you were just describing, kind of that back and forth, he uses Grok, and our parents are in the process or have been in the process of trying to sell their house, and they had an inspection done. Inspection turned up some things, big things they were not expecting. And so he was kind of back and forth with it. All right, hey, parents are, 80 and 81 years old. They are considering moving. They've run into this. What are some recommended actions and or
Mhm.
paths that they could take? And it came back, he was like shocked at what it came back with as far as the depth of options.
Mhm.
So great tools. And again, so I think the key point there is to think much broader than and deeper as far as what the tool can do. Because like you said, I
Mm.
mean, it's not necessarily conversational, but kind of conversational,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
In that you can actually ask for recommendations. Now, I think you seek your own wise counsel in that case, right? Where you need to make sure that recommendations that you're getting are valid.
Mhm.
Are you seeing has that improved? Because I know there was, I can't remember what the term was, several months ago, but where the AI was just sort of making stuff up.
Hallucinating,
There we
the
go.
term
Yeah.
for that is
Right.
hallucinations. Yeah, I haven't seen personally, I haven't seen any of that.
Okay.
Um, but, I'm sure people are going out and pushing the limits and, trying to get it to do that. But, um, yeah, the recommendation is always check the results.
Sure.
I think there was one famous case where an attorney was using it and it came up with case case studies and so on that didn't really exist.
Oh,
And it it was eventually figured out that, this case study he was referring to in his brief was uh, not real.
oh boy.
So,
That's that's not good. So
yeah.
so what about what are some ways that you've seen or you've used or witnessed other people use it in kind of outlining a process or even an org chart, right? Or how do you do that or
Right.
do you have some examples of that?
Well, I'd say I haven't really. I know it's supposed to be good from what a lot of people say about uh, doing a series of steps. Okay. We haven't really done that too much because we do
Okay.
have a lot of things already documented. But in terms of like organizing a project, I'd say what you want to do is start with the basics of your own thoughts on a topic and then ask ChatGPT to organize those thoughts in some sort of a logical order because if we're brainstorming about things, things pop up in many different directions. I used to use a mind map to try to do that. Now I just try to put it in Chat GPT that way. And then you can ask Chat GPT, did I miss anything that would be helpful? And if so, what? And then ask it to include any of that feedback into the to redo. So maybe it's done one layer, and now you get some more feedback from it, and you go, okay, can you incorporate that in what you already gave me? And so then it
Hmm.
will turn around and pull it back in, so you get something that's more complete. So, what in terms of a project, maybe I'll go back and look at right now. I had just worked on putting a new blog page up. Okay, and wow, all of the recommendations it gave me in the background. To have an SEO-friendly blog requires a lot of little steps in the background, down to what you put in behind your pictures. There are like 4 or 5 things, and it gave me recommendations of said, "Well, find this kind of a picture and then put the title of this in and put the description in," and it gave me all that detail. So I don't know that I would write that up as a standard operating procedure because I can anytime I want it, I could just go ask ChatGPT. So,
Hmm.
I think a lot of people are saying, "Oh, I would use it to document my processes," and you can certainly do that, but also you can do it on the fly and get what you need. So,
Hmm. So, like in that case of documenting processes, even if you already had process documentation, you could dump it in and say, "Hey, take a look at my process that I'm currently using
mhm,
and suggest improvements." Right?
mhm,
Yeah.
exactly. So, yeah, you
And
can just use
yeah,
it for everything. It's
right.
I've
Yeah.
become totally I've become totally addicted, so
what's a big surprise for you that you have used it for that you weren't really expecting to get kind of the outcome that you got?
Well, I think it's that it offers so much in terms of additional information, and it kind of like you said at the beginning, it started asking you questions back. Do you want this? Do you want that? So, for
Hmm.
instance, I do workshops, and lots of times I'll ask it to help me with the prompt that I'm going to share with people in the workshop. Um, I like my prompts to be such that people can just kind of work their way through them without having to build the prompt themselves. So I say, well, here's the prompt, here's the outcome I want. Uh, and I will start with the prompt, or I'll ask ChatGPT to give me the prompt. Um, and it's not always great, but I test it and then we tweak it together.
Okay.
And then I'll ask it to um, make it as good as it can be for it to work as well as it could as it's interacting with people. So I think the surprise is that you don't have to be like a prompt master. You can just ask ChatGPT to help you create the prompt
Right.
and then check it. So it's kind of like tell me how to talk to you is is a good way to think of it.
Oh, that's interesting. And then, and on those prompts that it ends up feeding back to you, are the feed prompts that it feeds back to you, are they fairly short and very, very limited, or does it end up giving you a pretty big
Well,
prompt back?
generally, I tell it, how long the workshop is going to be and that
Okay.
how long people are going to have to work on it. And
Okay.
so I can tell it, for instance, we do book workshops, okay, and I'll say, give me a 500 to 600 word outline of the major topics or learning objectives in this book, and because I want people to be able to read through it, okay, so it will help me keep it to a length that's useful for people in the workshop. If
Okay.
I asked it to do, but I've seen lots of other prompts that are really extensive and will, outline all the roles for somebody in a particular position, 64, an 8 by 8 matrix of
Mm.
different roles for that person. And then another matrix, another 64 cell matrix that is how can they be more efficient in that particular position. So, and those prompts I didn't write, I just used them, but you can go back in and study prompts and see how they were put together. So,
Yeah. When you say you can go back in and study prompts, like your own prompts, or what do you mean?
well, like the ones that came up with all the roles, for different people in the
Okay.
company,
Yeah.
the prompt came through in a what's called a custom GPT. In other words, it's just set up so you don't necessarily see the prompt, but in the group I'm in, I also have access to the prompt itself. And I
Okay.
can go in and look and see how it's structured and how they put different pieces in to create that matrix. So you can either learn prompts by experimenting with them, or you can study other people's prompts when you get a chance and learn from that. And of course, there are classes. You can take classes on how to interact with ChatGPT.
Right. So, like on studying the prompts, would that be like if you're in a group and that's how you were able to kind of see these prompts? If I'm just a single user,
Mhm.
where would I mean, are there prompts out there available somewhere that I could go and take a look at? Like, or do I just ask ChatGPT, hey, show me prompts for,
Yeah, you could ask it. And yeah, when you go into ChatGPT, I don't use them very often, but there are
yeah,
thousands of prompts out there that people have created.
okay,
So you can go into it's at the top of ChatGPT where you can ask it or look at other prompts that people have done.
okay, right,
And you just want to be a little careful because somebody else's prompt, you may be exposing data that you didn't necessarily want to expose. So
right.
um,
Okay.
yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, and it's so funny just in this conversation. I mean, I was going to, oh, well, gosh, I need to go search. Well, no, I need to let ChatGPT or whatever my AI do that search
Just
for me.
ask it
Right. It's already there.
anytime. Yeah, that's the whole thing is it's hard to get your brain switched around because we're used to going and figuring things out ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so, yes, you could just go into ChatGPT and say, hey, where can I find some custom GPTs to play with? And it's going to tell you.
Right.
We experienced something that I didn't know was going to happen when we moved into the Teams mode for ChatGPT. We lost the ability to do what's called deep search. Okay. And I went, oh, darn. I didn't know we were going to, and you really can't, once you go into the team environment, it's not a reversible thing. Okay. So
Hmm.
I went out and I asked ChatGPT, I said, well, now what do I do if I don't have deep search here? It said, oh, well, you can go over to Google Gemini and, you can go get your deep search there. And there's a free level and there's a paid level. And, it'll tell you about other software uh, to get you what you want. So I'm started on the path of looking into Google Gemini because I've heard some really good things about it too.
Okay, which that's interesting because I don't know if it was our last conversation or our first conversation, you kind of had stated, maybe even in this conversation, that you really are focused on ChatGPT. Now ChatGPT has forced you to go be to broaden out yours. It'll be interesting to hear maybe by the end of our series here
Hmm.
what you've seen as the difference between those two. If one of them is better in your experience, if one of them is better at a certain type of activity or deliverable versus the other.
Right.
That'll be very
Well,
interesting.
and
So,
I had done a deep search in ChatGPT, actually two of them in ChatGPT, and then we switched over to Teams, and I went out and looked for it, and I'm going, well, I can't find it. It's gone.
not good. Not
And
good.
so I'm just surprised that I mean, it's kind of an upgrade for us to go to Teams, but we did lose something in the process of doing it that we didn't realize we were going to lose. So
Which
it's
that'd
okay.
be,
I'll go
which,
experiment
yeah,
in another one too.
which that's a pretty big deal. I mean, that's actually, I'm going to ask you to back up. Define what deep search is, because I don't want to
Um,
make any assumptions.
yeah, okay. Well, if you put a topic in, um, and say, tell me in a question or two, it's going to go out and it goes through an analytical process and it says, oh, I'm searching websites. Oh, I'm doing this. Oh, I'm doing that. So I guess my best example would be when I said, okay, this is my company and I'm working in construction and manufacturing, and can you give me some good ideas about where I may want to go? Gave it a little bit more background, and it worked on that project for probably 20 minutes. It just sat and worked, and you could see on the
Yeah.
screen what it's going through, and it's saying, well, I'm checking here, I'm looking for the organizations, I'm looking for this, I'm looking for that, and it goes all the way through for like 20 minutes. And you know how fast ChatGPT is, okay?
Right.
But it's doing a much deeper research and checking out everything. So ultimately, I got a recommendation that really made a lot of sense as to what it came up with. It basically said, you probably don't want to do manufacturing because I also asked about AI. Okay. So you probably don't want to do a lot in the manufacturing arena because there are a lot of firms already over here doing AI, but over on the construction side, there's almost nobody.
Mm.
So, go look at remodeling and trade contractors and custom builders and so on. But it gave me a really nice layout, reasoning. It gave me something like a 60-page report, and it had like every uh, organization, okay, that I might want to reach out to, what the top construction firms were. It, just as if I had sent somebody off to do research for 4 or 5 days to put a
Wow.
60-page report together for me
Wow.
on a topic.
Or was commenting on one of our questions was about, a surprise, but that's
Right.
probably it, right? I mean, you got a 60-page report that I doubt you were really expecting a 60-page report.
Right. And I mean, I knew a lot of the organizations, for instance, that it listed, and I went, no, I would not talk to them. But it gave me all that information to work with. And I could even probably take that and feed it back into ChatGPT and say, okay, can you condense it down to do thus and so? But that deep search feature, I follow a podcast, an artificial intelligence podcast, and they have talked about that frequently. And so I kind of expected, because I had heard about it, I kind of expected a bigger report. And it did, but it worked worked on it for about 20 minutes, but it would show you what it was doing, what it was checking, it was comparisons it was making, looking over a period of time, just an incredible amount of research being done.
Mm. Yeah, and is deep search, I mean, is that something that you have to prompt, or is it,
Yeah,
um,
there's a search back when I could get it in ChatGPT, there was a little button at the bottom that you could say deep search.
okay,
And again, I only went out and just barely got into the Google Gemini, so I haven't had a chance to play with it at all. The
gotcha.
big thing
And are you
about
using, like,
AI, the big thing about AI is you have to it's kind of like when Google came out, you could spend all day in Google and you can do the same thing with AI. Uh, but you have to limit it to a certain extent. Otherwise, that's all I do. So,
right? Well, it's really funny. My wife, she's having a surgery this week, so she wanted to go get some books that she could read over, during recovery time.
mhm,
And while we were at the bookstore, it's this used bookstore. I started thinking, gosh, I want to do research and not research, but just want to kind of go back into American history and
mhm.
really look at founding fathers. I've got one little short book on, founding fathers, and um, but just as we're talking now, I'm like, I just need to ask ChatGPT or whichever to give me, short report on each one. It'll save me a lot of time. Um,
Yeah,
so I'll give
absolutely.
that a shot. I'll have to let you know how that turns out.
Okay. Yeah,
And
that'll be
so,
good.
all right, so let's wrap it up with, so we convinced people that, and not us, but AI is here to stay.
Mhm,
Um, we have talked about over, to this third conversation now, the power of the tool, the
mhm.
ability of the tool to be used and leveraged in pretty much any aspect of the business. Obviously, there's some more sensitive areas you definitely want to have your hands on, but um, we've talked a lot about projects and how you can leverage the tool to help you be more efficient, be more productive, stay on task. But what if somebody's stuck? How can they leverage this type of tool, again, ChatGPT or one of the others, to get unstuck either from a project or just from a mindset? Even again, as we're thinking, I was thinking about the conversation, or as we were talking, thinking about the conversation I just had with my business partner about some things that we're working on. And stuck's not the right word, and overwhelmed's not the right word, but it's something where we need to kind of iterate it, right? And run through some different iterations to see where we need to focus some effort. But so if I'm stuck, how do I get unstuck?
Um, well, based on the book Getting Things Done, the best thing to do is just say, what's my next step? Okay, but the more context you can give it, so what you just explained to me, you could sit down and just talk it into ChatGPT and say, well, now, s- I feel like we need to go deeper into this particular area. What is a good way to go about doing that? And it will give you a process and you know, to go through, and that should get you kind of to the next step. The other thing I've noticed, we just did a quarter 3 planning, and each one of us in the organization did our own Q3 planning. Then we got together in a meeting, and then we clarified some things back and forth, and then everybody went back and kind of redid theirs based on some additional information that we had shared as a group. And we were able to come back with something that was individualized for each person, kind of step by step, because we
Mhm.
asked it to lay it out and say, okay, so over a 12-week period, in order to get this thing done, how would I get it done? It'll lay it out. It'll say, well, week 1, do this, week 2, do that, and so on. But we were able to come back together and then share and see that we all had our individual plans, but they were all still coordinated with each other. So the next step thing I would say, just backing up, is to start out and ask it to lay out the steps, okay?
Hmm.
To lay out the plan for you to get where you want to go. But if you get in the middle of something and you need to go deeper, just ask it to give you more information on that particular step, and it'll give it to you.
Right.
So,
That's funny you say about the Q3 planning. We're doing that. I think it's actually this time next week, and I will go through the process that you just said because we do want, again, we've really just started this current quarter
mhm,
using going through the scaling up method. And there's things about it that we still haven't fully wrapped our heads around about some of the specifics, deliverables, or some of the specific kind of targets
mhm.
down to the individual basis. But I'll see what ChatGPT has to say about that because again, when I
Well,
yeah,
if you go out to our website, and there's a page where it's got all of our workshops,
yeah.
okay, and one of them is Q3 planning. If you want to go pick up the prompt,
Oh,
all,
absolutely.
all the
What?
prompts that we've developed for those workshops are on that page. So,
Okay, great. What's
uh,
the what is the page?
okay, well, if you go to buildyournumbers.com, you should be able to, and of course, I don't have it in front of me right now, but there's a menu item I think it's AI training.
Okay.
Well, let me go look. Hang on just a
Sure.
minute.
All right. Don't
Hey,
play the
I'm
Jeopardy
going to
music, but it's
build. Yeah,
copyrighted.
exactly. Buildyournumbers.com, and then I'm clicking to get to the menu, and online training is there's the home button, and then online training. And
Yeah.
then the first one is AI for work, free recorded workshops and AI prompts. And if you look down through those, you'll find the planning one, as well
Okay.
as all the other
Awesome.
workshops we've done. If anything looks interesting to you, uh,
Okay.
you can watch the workshop and or download the slides and the prompts.
Well, you know what? I will go do that. That's perfect timing. So I'm glad that
Yeah.
we got this in before my planning call. It would have been terrible to have had this afterwards. So
Oh, rats, I should have done that. So, yeah, and of
Sydney
course, that
hours.
prompt you can use for any quarter. I mean, we just kind of label it up
Right.
Q3 planning, but you can use it for
Yeah.
any quarter that you want.
All right. Perfect. Any parting thoughts?
Um, I just say continue every time you decide, oh, I have to do something on my own. I have to write a blog.
Yeah.
Okay. So rather than trying to do it yourself and then having ChatGPT look at it afterwards, just say, well, ChatGPT, here's a product. Okay, I just did this. I'm almost done with it. Here's a product I would like to promote in our social media. And by the way, I would like to write a blog article. Okay. And here's the page. Go look at the product, and then suggest a blog article for me and help me write the blog article.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just anything that you would have done totally on your own before, try asking ChatGPT to help, because
Yeah.
it will help. So
Right. Okay. Perfect. There we go. All right. Well, episode 3 is a wrap, and we will get this pushed out there, and then we will be working on episode 4 in the next few weeks.
exactly, and I think
All
the
right.
topic of that is helping your team use AI without fear. So
Perfect. And again, we're going to close with so it's buildyournumbers.com, and then just go spend some time there. Anybody is listening to get some resources, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, Diane. Have a great week.
Thanks so much, Gary. It's always
Thank you.
fun to
Bye-bye.
chat with you.